So now we take a few questions, and I would like to... Patrick, you want to join us? Right, so if you have any questions for our teams here, feel free. We have microphones in the room, so there you go. Thank you, Patrick.
Can I make a remark?
Of course.
Because I disagree with one point, which is pretty fundamental. Yeah, it can not cost more. Okay, so we have to understand, yeah, that it can not cost more. It doesn't mean that in some cases the material will not cost more. It's possible. But then we have to find the architecture, we have to find the design, we have to find a solution just to make it affordable, to make it recognized in terms of value by the customers. And if we are not clear on this, and if all our teams are not clear on this, we will not be successful. On the top of that, I think the volumes will grow. So the volumes will also allow us a scale effect on the costs. So we have all to work on making it affordable. And I said it this morning, we have to make mobility affordable. If not, we will stop selling cars.
Of course.
Can I make a comment, please?
Yes, of course.
On the costs, we can help you because we don't have the volatility that we have on virgin materials. So I'm not saying we are more expensive, less expensive. We have seen the curves crossing in recent times, but our costs are stable. So this should be something that goes into your direction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that I take an example which is not in the resins, but if we are considering green steel, which will be produced in direct reduction with hydrogen, for example, it will cost more at the beginning at least. Yeah? Because the processes are different, the investments are significant. But we have to find solutions to use less steel in our products, to combine them with other materials the smart way, to recycle much more and to have a design which will allow it and to ease it. And I think that we also have to think about, the life cycles and to multiply the lives of these products. So we have to be creative. Mm-hmm. But I'm absolutely confident that this is possible. We can make it affordable.
All right. So I would like to thank François and Sven. Thank you very much, and let you go back to your seats. You stay with me, Patrick, for a few questions. I would like to invite Jan and Remy, I think. Well, you guys are still here? Yes? Please join us, and we'll take a few questions. Thank you. All right. Brilliant. So, do we have any questions in the room? Feel free, we have microphones, so just raise your hands if you have any questions on scope 1, 2, and 3, or any other questions related to the roadmap. We'll be very happy to take them now. It means that we've been very clear. Okay, we have a question here. Please, pass on the mic. Thank you.
Hello, thank you very much. I'm Qiang Han from Grateful Motors in Europe, responsible for the R&D in Europe. So I got one question regarding the sustainability. So this is a question which was already touched, and also from remark from Patrick. From our point of view as OEM, yeah, we have also the good willing to protect our environment and so on, and invest much by sustainability, but not only good willing is not enough. So the real stoppers in reality is that which makes the cost higher from your side as subsystem supplier and also for OEM. And the competition currently in the automotive industry is even higher and higher, which means the cost is very, very, very sensitive. Mostly if you, for example, there are some measures which we want to implement is easier. for example, if we save energies like the scope 1, scope 2, which makes the cost lower, then it's okay. But for some other things, like if we want to use the different compounds like thermoplastic, duroplastic with short, long, underloss fibers, glass fiber, carbon fiber, doesn't matter. But normally, this makes the product more expensive. This is compared with alu and steel. So is there some other profits for the OEM? For example, like exhaust, in the exhaust area, if we invest more things for the motor development, then or maybe use electric or hybrid things, and then we can have a profit in other way, like CO2 pooling. Is there also some concrete regulations or things which is really pushing hard forward for sustainability from the regulation point of view, from the authorities and so on? At this moment, we only know that there's directives which are showing the directions, but there's no concrete, mandatory things. That would be something which is very important for us as OEM. Thank you very much.
I will try to answer your question speaking about two examples. The first example is the modular seat you have behind us. It's a seat which will be assembled through 10 modules. Each of these modules should be produced with one single material in different forms. You can have foils, you can have foams, you can have, rigid plastics, but all of that with the same resin or the same molecules. If you do this, at the beginning at least, you might have an increase on the materials because of the recycled materials, because of the biosourced materials. But if instead of assembling in a JIT plant 120 components, you only clip together 10 modules, you make a significant saving. Yeah? So this is what I said. It might be that at least at the beginning the materials will cost more, but we have to find solutions that the system or the modules will not cost more and even cost less. I'll give you another example, leather. The tendency is very clearly animal-free. Yeah? People want a vegan vehicle. So when you consider leather, you have a scrap level which is very high, especially on the large parts. So if I take an IP, an instrument panel, you need very large pieces of leather which have to be defect-free. Yeah? So this has a cost. On the top of that, it's an heterogeneous material. It's an alive material, and we are not used to transform these materials in the automotive industry. Now, if you find alternatives which will give you the same perceived quality, and it is possible, with biosourced materials, you will make a saving. Yeah. So this is why I'm sorry I made the remark at the beginning. If we think and if we integrate that it should cost more, we will not make it happen. Yeah? So this is what I'm repeating recurrently to our teams. It has to be affordable. Yeah? And we are dealing with this. So we understand, we are with OEMs, I think that sometimes, we get opposed by the press, we are in the same boat. If OEMs are not selling cars, we're not selling our parts. Yeah? So we have to find common solutions. What is also very clear from all the discussions we had so far is that we will not do it alone. Yeah? It's clearly related to the quality of ecosystems. And in these ecosystems, OEMs are part of it. And we will have to do it together.
Jan, you want to add?
Yeah, I wanted to add a longer-term perspective. What you said, Patrick, I think covers very well the short and medium terms. In the longer term, we see that mobility patterns may evolve. The way we use cars today may be a bit different in the future. We could use car longers. We could think of refurbishing completely the hardware of the car. So we could have very different business models. That's, of course, so far early stage, and that's long-term view. But I think that the business model in our industry may significantly evolve in the long-term future.
You're completely right. When you look at the value of the asset, of the mobility asset, and the depreciation of this value, it's crazy. And you know, at the end of life of the vehicle, it has zero value. Sometimes, in some countries, you have to pay to get rid of it. This is not possible. Okay, there's no real reason for this. Yeah? And so we will have to work again together in these ecosystems to maintain the value of the mobility devices much longer. And even at the end of the use of the mobility device, it still has a value which is related to the materials. Yeah?
Thank you. Do we have any other question from the room? Yeah. Raise your hands. Yes? Mike, please.
Thank you very much, Javier Nieto here from Perla Weinberg. Maybe could the team elaborate a bit on your views around global differences in sustainability views, be it from a regulatory perspective, be it from preferences, be it from a cost perspective, of course, especially around China, other emerging markets, and the Western world, and what is your strategy as a global group to address that?
Thank you.
Okay, so of course, the different regions of the world are different. So let's talk about China, Europe, and the US. And we believe that Europe might be advanced against other regions, but not sure. Because, of course, there are a wave of regulations coming, prepared by the European Commission, European Parliament, and member states. But it takes a lot of time to discuss. And sometimes maybe they are not appropriate. And if you compare to China, for instance, China, when they make a decision, it's super fast. So we should be convinced that we need to be ahead of the curve if we want to make sure that we are prepared to the regulation which are being cooked differently in the different regions. But I'm convinced that the speed is going to be about the same. Maybe with some accelerations here and there, but we are all going into the right and same direction.
I think the legacies are not the same. When you look at the energy grid in China, it's much more recent than what we have in Europe or in the US. Then you have also the political approach. In Europe, you start to have a regulation, and politicians expect that the industry will get adapted to the regulation. In America, you incentivize science and innovation to get, the solutions, and then you change the regulation. So I think that this is also different from one country to the other. But my perception, it's my personal perception, having people from, in many different countries, the awareness of the consumers, of people, is close to be the same. Yeah? And there is, because the people are living it. Yeah? What is important, when we speak about 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees, we should not speak about averages. We should speak about very concrete cases in very small locations where people are suffering from it. And so everywhere you have these cases.
Thank you for that question. Do we have any other from the room? Feel free. Yes? Yeah. Microphone, please. Thank you.
Yeah, hello. Johannes Dresenrausch, Ford. One key point from your side was to improve science. I think that's not only done in your company. What other sources, like universities, external institutes, you use?
So when we speak about science, what we said is that the solutions will come from scientific changes and innovations, yeah? Science-based innovation. This is what we had in mind. And of course, we are not pretending being capable alone to provide these solutions. So we are working here again in an ecosystem, which is an international ecosystem with universities, with research centers around the world, with very specific skill sets and specialities. What we have learned during the last decade is that working with many of these research centers and putting a little bit of money in many doesn't work. What you need is to establish a relationship with the research engineers, with the labs, with these centers, to have an influence on them and to have a real collaboration with them. So what we did in the past years, we were more selective, but also we increased our intimacy. So we were selective in selecting the specialities around the world. We believed the people are at the best possible level. And what we also do is we are working with, for example, le Collège de France to advise us, yeah, with white books to tell us this is state of the art, this is what we believe might happen. These are the best worldwide dealing with this subject. Again, it's an ecosystem.
Thank you for that question. Any other questions from the room? Feel free. Please pass the mic.
Hello, thank you for the presentations. My name is Barbara Henriques from TMG Automotive. I'm part of the sustainability department, and we are also validating our targets for the SBTi initiative. And for sure, Scope 3 is the most challenging one, mainly the downstream activities that implies the processing of our products in Tier 1, namely in Forvia. So my question is, how do you see this share of information, mainly with the upstream part of your supply chain? Because we are using data from data sets, but how do you see this share of more proper data throughout the supply chain with all the confidential situations in place?
Okay, so thank you for the question. Definitely, we are on the same boat, as Patrick said, so we need to share the same data with the same understanding. So we are very happy, quite happy, to exchange our calculations on the materials which we use, the assumptions which we make, and we try to be as accurate as possible. We not only measure emission factors, for instance, but we measure the accuracy of these emission factors, depending on how they have been calculated, where they come from, and so on. So definitely, we are happy, ready to both discuss with suppliers and, of course, the customers, because at the end of the day, we will sell a product with a footprint to our customers, and we need to demonstrate what is the value. We discussed about it earlier. What is the value of what we sell? And so we need to demonstrate this, and therefore we need to be all agreeing on the same value and the same calculations.
Fine.
My experience showed that our industry, the automotive industry, hates monopolistic positions. Yeah? So if you want really to grow an innovation, you have to make sure that the competition exists. Yeah? So it might be through a license at the beginning with some support, yeah? But it's the right way to achieve the interesting volumes. And we have to be serious, if we really want to change things, we have to accept that volumes counts and that we will not be alone to produce them. And the game is, as usual, is to be the first to the market, and to have an innovation which is always keeping you in the leadership position.
Thank you for that question. We have a couple more minutes, just if we have one or two questions. Yeah?
Hello, Umberto Fassero from Clepa. We are seeing more and more OEMs trying to anticipate their Scope 3 target to 2040. Do you think that you will have to adapt to 2040 as well in the future, or do you think you can co-create the Scope 3 target?
Yeah, I think we are definitely on track to meet the different regulation challenges and also to meet the OEM expectations. So we have 2045 as the net zero target, so it will accommodate potentially different views and speed of the OEMs. It will in any case be ahead of the regulation, that's for sure. And therefore, you know, we believe we have the right target. Now, as we explained, there are different challenges, gaps, and so on. But we will do it together with the OEMs, and we will be sure that we are always aligned both with the regulations and even ahead, and OEM expectations. So in this respect, it's day-to-day work to have these exchanges and discussion and to be fully aligned.
But with humility, I will say that our customers need to win in agility. The difficulty we have in the moment is that very often the innovations are related to systems or modules, and OEMs are usually not organized that way. So when you have to integrate and display in an IP, you do not speak with one organization, but with several organizations, including when you speak about new materials and so on. So they are aware, when I speak to the top management of our customers, they are perfectly understanding this situation and the need to make some changes, but it takes a little bit of time.
Thank you for that question. There was one more question, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas Weber, Boston Consulting Group. Quick question, you mentioned in your introduction also impact on water, biodiversity, and other elements of nature. You know, sometimes what's good for climate and emissions is not good for nature, and most prominent example maybe being mining impact on landscape degradation for battery materials. So how do you trade off emission targets versus water versus other targets, and how do you prioritize amongst them?
No trade-off.
Nope.
I mean, we make sure that while we reduce, for instance, the CO2 footprint, we pay attention to what are the consequences on water, biodiversity, circular economy, and dangerous materials, for instance. So we make sure that we have the full view in all the decisions which we make, in all the materials which we develop. So next door you will be able to see. But definitely we pay attention simultaneously to the different impacts.
And by the way, the regulation goes that way as well. With the taxonomy, exactly. You know that you need to consider as well the impact on all the other criteria of environment, not only CO2.
It's not our job to make this trade-off. I think we have politicians who should care about this. And maybe they should rethink some of their decisions from this point of view. Because I think you're raising a very important question, and maybe this will be part of some of the discussions we have today. You need a social acceptance, and again, this is why I'm insisting so much about affordability. Yeah, and you cannot say, you know, we do renewables, but after that you have the population not willing to have windmills or whatever in their garden or in their horizon. Yeah, so we need consistency. Yeah? But it's not up to a company to deal with this. You know, we will not make trade-offs. We will work on affordability on the perimeters we have, but we are also citoyens, so we are people who have a mandate, who are electing people, and we have to use it.
Thank you for that question. If we're done, we're almost out of time, so I think we will stop here. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, all of you, for your questions. Thank you, Patrick, Remy, and Jan. So I think it's now time for a short break, and we'll see you here at 11:30 sharp for the rest of the panels. Thank you very much.
judge them.